Hi, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Hitstreak. Check it out. I got to give a big shout out to my show sponsor, my friends over at AVLX. I also have to give a big shout out to Charles Henry and Ace Young, the amazing performers and producers of the music behind the show, as well as the amazing people that make up the Hit Lab creative team, who are the producers of the show. Folks, I have a favor to ask. If you like what you hear, and I know you do, click that subscribe button to make sure you get alerted when new episodes are dropped. Thanks for tuning in.
The real success stories told by the people who live them.
We're going to have some guests on this show that everybody knows, and we're going to have guests on this show that nobody knows yet.
One by one, Nick Hyder is adding hits to the hit streak.
Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hit Streak. I am your man, Nick Hyder, and Happy New Year. This is the first episode of our 2022 second season of the show, and I've got a very special guest in the house today because we're giving you an inside look at our first season, our first 10 episodes. I've got none other than our show executive producer, the lovely, talented, beautiful Miss Fiona Wascom. Fiona, thanks so much for hanging out with me today.
Well, I was going to be here anyways. So.
And that is how it goes around here, folks. That's it. So she is definitely the one in charge at this operation, right? So, well, Fiona, I'm really excited about this because, as I mentioned before, we finished out the 2021 year and season with a bang. It was awesome. We shot and aired 10 episodes of the podcast. We had some amazing guests, and we wanted to kick off our second season in 2022 with a look back, tell some stories, talk about the amazing guests we had and stuff like that. Some funny things that happened, all the good stuff, behind the scenes, an inside look, right? So what do you think? Should we get into it?
We should.
All right. So first of all, I guess I should tell them a little bit about you, right? So first of all, Fiona is I'll let you tell the folks about you, right? So how in the world did you end up here being the sales lead? The studio lead, the sales and distribution arm of the Hit Lab creative team, as well as a brand specialist, and the executive producer of our guest relations, all of our distribution for content, all that stuff for this podcast. How in the world did you end up here?
Well, I just heard y'all were looking for somebody, and I came in and interviewed, and just kind of came from there.
You made it really easy. Once she came in and interviewed folks, the job was done. We had it filled, and it's been amazing ever since. Because we're in a very state-of-the-art facility here, and when you got here, it was functional, and I knew how to do some of the things in it. But she has blown this place up with all the things that we can do here, whether it be training videos, marketing videos, shooting podcasts, live calls, live streams. You name it, we're doing it, aren't we?
We are. It really is such an amazing facility, and there's so much we still haven't even unlocked with all the technology here. It's amazing.
It's extremely exciting, and we are starting to open up all the opportunities that this place and our services provide to other folks, right? And we're really excited about that. So, so you obviously you have a very familiar last name with this show. So go on ahead and tell the folks. That's how I knew you first, right?
Right. So my dad built this studio, and so I grew up with music technology kind of my whole life, always going to concerts and everything, and that's what really got me into this sort of work, was just being around it my whole life. And I do my own music, and I have a studio at home, so it was just right place, right time.
Well, I hope as much as I know your career in music and everything is going to be massively huge. Selfishly, I hope we get to have you around here for quite a long time.
Yes.
before you go off and conquer the rest of the world. You know what I'm saying? And then I better get tickets to those shows, by the way.
Of course.
So, all right. So you did mention that you are a musician. Well,
Yes.
tell the folks a little bit about that.
Well, I've been writing songs since I can remember. I've been writing. I mean, I wrote my first song with both my parents. I sat down and I was like, I want to write a song, but I don't really know where to start. So they said, okay, let's go. And then I took some classes in high school. I took audio production for 3 years. And then I took a songwriting class for a year. And I went to a really nice school with really nice production equipment, very similar to some of the stuff that we have here. Mm-hmm. And so it really gave me that introduction to not only being around that equipment, but working with it. And then I've been doing it on my own ever since.
Right on. Well, it's, we deal with, we have some pretty awesome people that come in here, very accomplished. And to be a young adult in life, and I've got decades in the workforce here, and you really hold your own extremely well. Like, you don't act your age.
Thank you.
And that's an absolute compliment, because you fit right in. As a matter of fact, I always ask our guests and the people that come into the facilities how their experience was, and all of them speak extremely highly of you and your professionalism and all that stuff. And I know you didn't learn it from me. So, but man, it's you have been a huge blessing to everybody here. And as we mentioned before in previous episodes, Dale, who we're going to be referencing in a minute, coined the phrase BF. Right, and that we referenced that was done before Fiona. That's how it was done before Fiona, because it wasn't as good, right? So, all right, excuse me. So we are we're doing an inside look today. We're talking about all of our favorite guest moments, challenges in starting the podcast, social media, and how to implement your podcast promotion that way. We're talking about the more about the facility, where the Hitstreak, the podcast, is going in 2022. We're talking about a lot today, right? But man, 2021 was so much fun. We had some really cool people. So let me remind the folks kind of how this podcast came about, right? So I was late to the podcast world as far as a listener goes. I didn't really get it for a long time. There's still a lot of people out there that probably fall into that. And when I got invited to go on some, and that was when I saw kind of like the magic that they create from a business opportunity. They're unbelievable marketing opportunities, the best networking tool on the planet. Mm-hmm. I now believe that every person that's in business should have their own podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So I was asking Bradley, the amazing Bradley, the real Bradley from Dropping Bombs. And I was asking him the first time I met him, I was like, how did you start your podcast? And he was like, shoot, man. Somebody told me, just walk out in the office and get somebody and sit them down and rock and roll, because you're not supposed to be great at it at first, right? So we kicked off our pilot with none other Dale the Super Male. And I think it turned out, obviously anything Dale does is good, but I thought it turned out pretty good, right?
Yeah.
So do you remember, what were some of the highlights that you remember from that episode? It was a shorter one. It was only like 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. But you've sat in the house, in the studio, for every single one of them, right? Mm-hmm. So what were some of the highlights of Dale? What were some of the things that we learned from the very first one?
Well, that was one of the only ones that I wasn't present for.
Okay.
But it was really, really, it was a good beginning to the podcast. It was very, it really was just like, this is what the podcast is about. And an opening to our audience as far as what to expect.
That's right.
The rest of it.
That's right. When I look at some of the names of the people that we had, our second episode, my boys Randy Huth and Chris Mercado had just gotten back from the Little League World Series. They were literally doing interviews all day, every day. They had parades. They just had a parade a couple weeks ago for Christmas in downtown Nolensville. We had them come on and talk about all kinds of great stuff. We followed up with Ivan Itzkowitz, who is a insurance colleague out of South Florida, an amazing human being and a social media mongo. His stuff's going nuts, isn't it?
It really is. It's going absolutely bonkers right now.
Then we brought in my man Chris Rimbolt, and that was literally an off the cuff. We weren't expecting to shoot that. He was gonna come in and do an episode with me, and he just showed up on a Friday afternoon, and we were gonna have a beer or two, and so we just decided to talk on the microphone, and it turned into a great episode. We talked about all kinds of crazy stuff. My favorite guest so far was my bride, my wife Rhiannon. That was as soon as people found out we were doing this, everybody was saying you got to have her on.
Oh yeah.
She was a lot of fun. Then we followed up with that with real life trading founder Jeremy Newsom, who is probably one of the smartest minds I've ever met. Then your dad came in to talk about his company AVLX, who is our show sponsor, as well as building out the studio and lots of other stuff. A great guest in Marcus Manise with the founder of Stronger Than My Father, which I'm still blown away by what those guys are accomplishing, and just to hear in Nashville. And then our Christmas episode, Josh Heisman, that was fantastic. And then we wrapped the year with my boy, the sales Mongol, 100 million in personal production, incredible David Gwaltney, right? So I don't know. Let's you just want to just roll down the list of the episodes and let's talk about some stuff?
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, all right. So what did you think about what was some of your favorite parts with Randy and Chris? Because those guys were funny.
Yeah. It feels so long ago now. We've done so many. Oh, they were just nonstop. Just go, go, go. It was hilarious. It was, there's always moments of like seriousness, and they were just able to like so fluidly bring it back and forth between the serious moments, the funny moments, and then what they're accomplishing.
Mm-hmm. That was we will have a lot more episodes with multiple guests at the same time, but that was a big, to be our second episode, and we had two guests in here with the production that goes along with the cameras bouncing back and forth. When you think about it, that's kind of crazy.
It is.
That we opened that way.
It really is, because not many people could have done that. Not many, even podcasts could have 3 guests or 3 people on the mic. And with our equipment, it was actually really easy. It's just a press of a button, and it auto switches for us. It switches back and forth. They can probably see that it switches back and forth based on who's talking, and it just does it for us.
Well, luckily for me, it's simple for you. It would be hard for most people. But, you made it work easy. And then, having Ivan was our first guest that came in from out of town to be on it, and he was when I really felt like there's that when people have seen it for the first time, they walk in and they're just kind of, they look around and they're just kind of like in awe, and that was really cool to have a guest, because he'd never been here. We take it for granted because we see it every day. The moment he walked in, it was just like, man, this is so cool. It's way bigger than not in size, but in production value than most people would think, right?
It may not be the biggest studio. It may not be the most expensive studio, but it definitely is, I would say, better production than 9 of 10 podcast studios, or even just studios in general out there, especially in this area.
Absolutely, because we call this a podcast studio, and obviously most of the folks that are hanging with us are streaming and it's audio only. But this is a television studio at the end of the day. So well then Ivan. So talking about Ivan, have you ever met a more positive, fun person?
In the spirit of Ivan, and you'll learn that quickly, everything has to be next level, top. So I was like, you know what? We're not going to do Sheridan Tech. We're going to do Paul Mitchell.
Have you ever met a more positive, fun person?
Absolutely not. He is just a ball of just positive energy.
He was riding the momentum of the Brooks and Dunn Instagram reel. He hadn't even got on TikTok at the time. Now he is, right? So the folks can look for him, Ivan Iskowitz, on TikTok. You will not be disappointed.
Not at all.
And so Rimbolt was the one that you weren't in the building for
Right.
on that one, because that was off the cuff, kind of after hours. But he talked about some really good stuff in there, didn't he?
It was like there was lots of conspiracy theories and just like off the wall, just bouncing around stuff that it's just like you wouldn't expect from a business podcast, and it's just something that you really have to give it a chance. That's why people ask me all the time what I do. And I tell them I work at a podcast studio, and then they're like, "Oh, what kind of podcast is it?" I explain what kind of podcast it is, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know. Like, I'm not really into that sort of stuff." I'm like, "No, just give it a chance. Watch it, because it really there's something in it for everybody. In every single episode, there's something in it for everybody."
That's right. That's right. Well, that's the goal, anyways, right? And then My Queen, Rhiannon came in, and she had all kinds of good stuff for moms and everything out there. But I mean, she's a beast, man. And not only does she is like she raises beautiful, happy babies, but she's a heck of a businesswoman.
Absolutely. I mean, she is. I mean, I see her come into the office, and it's just like go, 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 go. Like her mind is always just working. And one thing that really struck me with her episode is she got into some of the mental health that comes into just being everything all at once like that. I mean, she's a mom and she's a businesswoman, and it's really hard to balance that. And she got into that, and it's just so amazing to watch her.
I was very downplaying who I was in my inner self. And so once I started saying, the daily confirmations, like, you got this, you can do this, but you get up out of the bed, get up and move, motivating myself. That's kind of when everything else changed for the mindset.
Jeremy Newsom never disappoints. He never disappoints. He brought in, I think before I could even get through the first 5 minutes, we'd added hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. He's somebody that I've watched take his business from zero to hero in a very fast amount of time, and most importantly, in a very competitive and crowded space in day trading. Right? You probably learned a lot from that one. I know I did, just about money and stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, I learned that I didn't know that you could invest in stocks and have it to where it's basically you can't lose. You can have what is it? It makes it to where it pulls out your money before you lose enough.
That's right.
It's
so
like
an insurance policy, basically.
Yeah. And you can't lose.
All right. So your dad came in, right? And obviously, so you got to see a side. You see both sides of him, the family guy, the dad, and the businessman, right? He killed it, didn't he?
He did. Yeah. It was really cool to see that. I never really seen that sort of aspect of him. I don't see him unless it's at home, really. So I don't get to see those aspects of like when he's working and that side of him. It was really interesting. But also he's my dad. I saw those aspects of at home too, because he raised us to do what you love, and then the money will follow. That's what he always told us growing up. And he lives that way business-wise too.
Yeah.
And being a good person before being a good business man.
He's one of the most underestimated people, just not in life, but like him and I coach our kids, our son's ball teams, right? Your brother and my son. And I got more feedback from the friends and family of the baseball community about that, because like they only see him in his shorts and his ball cap and with phone in hand, rocking the score, keeping score and all that kind of stuff. But like he's a monster of a businessman. Like,
oh yeah.
And his story is incredible. I could go on and on about him. And him and I are actually getting together Thursday evening for a little dinner. I'm excited about that. Then we brought in Marcus Manise was Stronger Than My Father. That was somebody that I had never met before, and he was referred to me by a buddy of mine who said, "Hey, dude, like this guy's doing something awesome in the community, and like you should look at him." And I did, and I was blown away. The first time I met Marcus in person, we'd spoken on the phone, but the first time I met him in person was the day that he came in to shoot. And I don't know if I've been as inspired as I was in a long time after hearing him talk, right?
That's how I train myself, because I'm flesh. I'm not human. I'm not God. But I just think about, all who it affects. Mm-hmm. It can affect my staff who looks upon this job for their livelihood. It can affect my kids. Yeah. And say, okay, Dad, you did all this work and all this talking about fatherhood, and look what you did.
Yeah, the same for me. Hearing his story, I was absolutely amazed. The things that he is doing, more people should know about him and what he's doing. I mean, it is just incredible. I'm like at a loss of words, because it's just like, if you haven't seen that episode, you need to go watch it, because it's amazing.
Absolutely. And he's incredibly well-spoken. So like, when you do these shows, like sometimes the guests are really good on a microphone, and sometimes they get nervous, or they tense up and they freeze up, and he was awesome. And I didn't know. How do you know?
Right.
The first time when we went on Dropping Bombs with Brad Lee, that was the I was just, honestly, Brad's a awesome dude and somebody that I've looked up to for a long time. And so when I met him the first time, went to go see him, honestly, I wasn't there to talk about me. I wanted to listen to him. Right. So we were doing the little pre-show talk that we all do, and he looked at me and he goes, "You guys aren't going to like freeze up on me in there, are you?" I was like, my wife was like, "Hell no." And I was like, no, we won't. I mean, I was just, raised in the South, being good manners. I'm in somebody else's house,
Yeah, what else are you going to say when he's right in front of you? Are you going to freeze up? Like, you're going to say yes? No.
That's right. But, you just don't know. And you don't know how, if you're going to have to carry the conversation or what. But Marcus was just fantastic.
He really was. And
what an inspiration. And then one of my favorite people, especially when it comes to leadership, was Pastor Josh Heisman, to help us talk about leadership and our Christmas episode. That was really cool. That was probably our longest taping so far. It was over 2 hours. It felt like 10 minutes.
It did.
But he was fantastic, and there was so many hits that we added to the Hitstreak that turned into clips later. Were really, really good. What was something that stuck out with you about Josh?
I mean, there's so much I could say about that episode, because there was so much. I mean, it was a 2-hour-long episode, but the one thing that really, really struck me was listening to him talk about Christmas, because we've all heard the story of Christmas. Everyone's heard the story of Christmas, and you've probably heard it 100 different ways. But the way he told the story of Christmas was so different. And it was just like, he got into my brain, and he was like, he took the way I heard it and changed it. And I see it in a whole different way now.
That's awesome. It's almost, those are the best speakers are the ones that you're in a crowded theater, a crowded room, or whether it's 10 people or 10,000. And when they start talking, it's just you and them.
Yep.
Everybody else disappears. And I guess it's the same way with concerts. Performers.
Yeah, it's like when they're talking just to you, and no one else is there. And that's one reason that I really love music so much, is there's some songs that it's like they're explaining the way you feel better than you can. And that's what a lot of these episodes have done. It's like, wow, you understand that way that I feel. And it makes you think differently about going about your life even. Like, there are so many lessons I have learned just from this podcast. I mean, being here, but also from this podcast and all these guests. I learned something new with every single guest we have.
That is kind of the beautiful thing about having a podcast, is when you have these people in, like, you're learning along the way too. So you're feeding off each other. It's I just can't put into words yet how awesome and impactful doing something like this has been, and it's only been 10 episodes.
Yeah.
It's only been 10 episodes.
I cannot wait to see where this is going to go. And I mean, even with this episode, there's so many ideas that we have, and all the episodes that we filmed, the progression that we've made already.
That's right.
Is amazing.
Well, we finished it off with the smooth talker, Mr. David Gwaltney.
Yes.
And David's somebody that I've known for quite some time. We've done business together, good and bad. We've had he's one of the most he's a family member to us. He's one of the most loyal people on the planet. But you're not going to find anybody that it's not like he has a sales process that he just does, or he could just teach just anybody. It's something that just over 15 years or so, or more of just doing it, he's just such a great speaker, a great communicator, but he finds out what's important to folks, and then it becomes important to him, and that's what you kind of feel when you're talking to him. The funniest thing with him, I'm gonna poke fun at him for a second because I can. But the studio gets hot from time to time, and he was wearing that jacket, and the microphone probably wasn't placed perfect for him, where he didn't, for him to be able to move around and hang. And you remember he was sweating.
Yeah,
it was hot in here.
It was. It is. The lights are hot. It really is. Oh, I looked in the light. That was bright.
But he was great, and we got a lot of great nuggets from him. 100 million in personal production sold. He's the only person I know that can say that.
Yeah.
And I've been around a lot of people. It was awesome. I mean, we had just in our first 10 guests. So in the trailer, in the introduction, one of the things that we talk about, people ask me what the show is about all the time. I'm like, well, it's a business podcast, but more importantly, we're telling stories about. There's just so many amazing stories that should get told on a bigger platform that don't. So we've coined the phrase. It's the people on the show, the guests on the show, are going to be people that everybody knows and people that not everybody knows yet. That's right. And we've got some really awesome people that everybody's going to know lined up for next year. I can't leak who those folks are yet, but they are coming. Right. So, this is it's a pretty solid production, right? So a lot of things have to happen to make one episode work, right? So let's tell the folks a little bit about what that looks like. There's a lot of folks out there that might be wanting to start a podcast, and first of all, if you want to start a podcast, they should be doing it with us, shouldn't they?
They should.
They definitely should, and we're going to let them know how to contact you if they have questions about that before we're done. And they can also look at hitlabstudio.com if they want to learn about any of that kind of stuff. But so the first thing you got to do is you got to find out who your guests are going to be, and you got to get them booked, right?
Right.
And that's easy, right? So talk to them about all the stuff that you got to do to get these guests confirmed, right?
Right. Well, it really starts with production. You really have to. I mean, everyone can make a podcast with. You could use your phone and get a camera if you want to film it. It doesn't take much to get a recording, but it does take a lot in order to get a recording that sounds good, to get a recording that looks good, and to get one that people want to watch. That's the difference. Is there's so many podcasts out there that you really have to find out what's the point. There's got to be a reason that you're filming this. If you're just filming it to get if you're just filming to get engagement, it's not going to work out because people aren't going to want to watch it. So the first step is why? Why are you doing it? And then getting guests. And then you have to figure out how you're going to get it out to your audience. And so you have to create an RSS feed. And then you have to put it on every single platform individually. And then from there, it's really about promotion.
Yep.
Because I would say, the biggest part of a podcast is the steps that happen afterwards. Not to mention the editing and intro and outro and all of that. So either you need to be able to do it yourself or get someone to do it for you.
Yep.
And it has to be, you have to understand for yourself, what kind of quality you're looking for.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do it yourself, you have to take the time to learn it. Or if you're going to get someone else to do it, then how much are you willing to pay in order to get that quality that you're looking for?
Yeah. There's single person podcasts. There's podcasts like this where you bring in guests and have conversations and stuff like that. I don't have anything against single person podcasts. There's some great ones out there. I think the reason it took me so long to get on the podcast bandwagon for a long time is because I guess the first ones I was exposed to were the lower end production ones, the kind where they are sitting at your kitchen table or on a couch in your living room with just a microphone and the lighting's not good. And so for me, it seemed like a knockoff version of radio or something. I don't know, I guess. But then I saw what it could be, and that changed my whole point of view on it. You know what I mean?
Right. And there's nothing to say that any podcast that's made on your kitchen table with a camera and a mic isn't necessarily bad. It's just there has to be a reason for people to watch.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to think that that we're hating on those in any way. Everybody's got to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
And we were blessed with an opportunity to start at at the place that we're at. But if you are starting out small, ask yourself, how big are you going to get? Where is it going? And that's some of those answers that you seek. Those are the answers that we can help you find.
Absolutely.
Right. We can help you find those. So, so you talked a lot about the steps, to create a podcast, and what you need to start. Gosh, booking guests is difficult because the people that we're bringing in are very successful and they have busy schedules as well, just like we do. And you're coordinating all that.
Yeah.
Right. Then you got to get, there's information that we seek from all of our guests that we call it our one sheet, and you're in charge of getting those.
Yeah, it is a lot. It's definitely a lot, but, someone's got to do it.
Well, and these people are busy and they don't necessarily know that we got to have that stuff kind of in advance to prepare and all that kind of stuff. And you have to have the right tone when you ask somebody for something over and over and over again. And you've done a beautiful job of that.
Thank you. It really is for them that we do that, though, because there is a quality control aspect to everything that we do. And in order to make sure that we have everything on time and we don't run into any problems too late before we can fix them, we have to get that information and we have to follow up with them as much as we do and as much as I do, because, I don't want them to come in and be like, well, what happened? We want everything to go good for them. So that's why we do it.
And then we get them here, and there's photos that have to be taken. We got to take photos. Everybody signs. It's off camera, but everybody signs the wall. Everybody signs the wall, and then there's getting everybody comfortable, getting the juices flowing, the conversation started. So we just kind of sit around and talk a little bit,
right? Until
we get to that point where it's like, all right, it's time to rock and roll, because that was something that I learned from Brad was if you say something great in the pre-conversation, when you do it again the second time, it's not as good.
It's like you're forcing it a second time.
Yeah, it loses its some of its value, or its emotion somehow, right? Because I guess it's the second time you've heard it,
right? Because it's just one of those things where it's like the first time you hear something, it's like, whoa. Second time you heard it, it's like, oh, okay. The third time you heard it, it's like, yeah, heard that.
That's right. So they come in and we shoot the show, and every once in a while we might start the beginning over once or twice or something like that. But once we get going, it's unedited. Yep. It's raw.
I think that's what makes this podcast so special too. Is once it gets going, it's going, and that's just how it is. A lot of podcasts, there's a lot of podcasts that I listen to that there's breaks in the middle and then there's ads all throughout it. We don't have any of that. It's just uncut, just beginning to end.
That's right. Although, if people did want us to take breaks to mention their businesses and they wanted to pay us enough money, we might consider that.
Of course.
But it is, no, it's raw. And so outside of, we have a great creative team and our video lead, in Connor Adams, who is phenomenal. And the perfect person for that job.
Absolutely.
He created. I guess I'm going to should I tell the folks how we made the intro?
That is a story, isn't it?
Because it turned out so good because of what Connor did. All right. So I guess I'll tell him. So first of all, the music behind it is unbelievably awesome. So a buddy of mine who's we're going to be producing a show for him this year in 2022 in Ace Young. Who was an American Idol alum, Grammy nominated songwriter. He's actually him and his wife Diana are out in Vegas. I'm doing a residency right now. He's been in movies, TV, you name it, he's done it. Unbelievably talented dude. We're going to be producing something for him this year. I was telling him about the show, and I was like, I need intro music. And he was like, well, what do you want it to sound like? And I actually loved one of his tracks off one of his EPs. And he said, dude, go out in your son's drum room and lay down the groove you want and send it to me. And I was like, okay. So I did. I was like, dude, what, do I need a mixer? He's like, no, just have your son hold your iPhone out and send it to me. And I did. And a couple weeks later, I got back the music that plays at the beginning and end of every show. And check this out. So he took that and sent it to his buddy, Charles Henry, he's played, first of all, Charles did every instrument that you hear in that, which is incredible on its own, from scratch, okay, based off a drum track out of my son's drum room with an iPhone. But Charles has been, he's performed with the Blue Man Group and a million other people. I mean, super talented dude. And Ace sent it back, and it was perfect. I couldn't believe it. So then I had to get the voiceover, right? So when Connor and Joshua were telling me, hey, we need the voiceover, what do you want to say? And I kind of had scripted it. I was sitting in my Jeep with my iPhone, and I recorded the voiceover that you hear today on the beginning of the show. But Connor took all that, made it sound awesome and beautiful like it does, took some static images and some things like that for our first season, because our second season, we're giving it a step up, but our first season, like, he did all that all by himself. Like, this is all, like, we didn't have any direction. This is all us, man. This is what we do.
There really is something to say about a creative mind when it comes to that stuff, because it's like they can take something just from like an idea or just a phrase or a clip of a song or whatever it is, a sound, and turn it into this entire thing, the entire song, entire video, just from this tiny little thing that sparked an idea.
That's right. When I was, I guess it was during quarantine of 2020, I needed to get a lot more video out. So, and I knew I was going to do a podcast. That was, I'd actually started telling people on the podcast I was going on, I was going to be launching a show. And I started filming everything in the office so that we could get some great clips. That's where the Hitstreak phrase came from. It's a play on words with the baseball background, but anytime somebody says something awesome or profound that we want to remember, we're adding a hit to the Hitstreak, the crack of the bat, all that stuff. So I got with Connor, and we started producing these little clips from business coaching calls, meetings, whatever, anything and everything. Connor would go in and find the little 1 to 3 minute clips and make Hitstreak clips out of them, and that was all to promote the podcast, right? Well, I wanted the podcast to be good production and good, and I didn't have the team yet. I didn't have the studio, so I was telling people about this show for well over a year before we ever shot the first episode, and that's not usually how I roll. And I'm saying all that to say this, because now we have the facility. People don't have to wait. Like, I would have launched it sooner, but the studio wasn't built yet. And the reason it wasn't built yet is because most of the equipment was sitting on a container on the ocean somewhere forever before we could get it. So everything was delayed. But people don't have to do that now because we have the facility, and we have the team, and we have the experience, and we have everything. As long as they have the passion, the desire, they don't even have to have the concept yet, because we can help them come up with that. And then now we're releasing all these clips from same thing, business coaching calls, team meetings, whatever it may be, and podcast clips to rock and roll. So it was about a year and a half journey
Yeah.
to get this show off the ground, and a whole team of people that we had to do, because we've had hours and hours and hours of meetings
Yes.
to come up with all this.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that's really special about us is that all of us started at the very beginning of this. We were all brought on at the very, very beginning. And we grew with the podcast and with each other, and took this really from 0 to 100. So if we can do it once, we can do it again.
That's right.
And we've been there every step of the way from now until with other podcasts and with other people, we can do the same.
That's right. That's right. So the folks out there that may not see the value of a podcast, or they think, why me? Like, I think everybody should have a podcast, because you never know who wants to listen. You just don't know. And the more that you can put out is the more you can put out. Right. And more content's always better. More marketing's always better. You cannot promote too much.
There's
you cannot
never
market
too much.
That's right. So what are some things like, you've grown a ton since you've been here. So I don't know, talk about the evolution of your growth since you got here.
Well, I've learned a lot, especially just about business. I mean, business was never really something I was around. It was the music side of it, but never really the business side of it. So just, that side of everything I learned a lot. But I really did learn a lot about just growing as a person. I mean, there's so many lessons in business that are about being a better person too. Like, you really have to be the best person you can be before you can grow the best business you can have.
Girl. Absolutely. So the team's going to be, you guys are going to be dropping a podcast here soon.
Yes.
Right. And that's going to be a hoot. Oh my gosh. Because when we all get together on the calls and stuff, some of that, I mean, it's just an idea. It's a massive think tank. It's a master brain of a think tank, right? And so what are some things that you think will come along the way from a podcasting standpoint? Because we're featuring these things on, I mean, gosh, I can't even rattle them all off anymore, how many platforms that these things are on.
Yeah. Oh gosh. There's a lot of platforms that we're on now. And I mean, podcasts really haven't even been that big for that long. I mean, podcasts in general are really taking off, and seeing what everyone is doing with them is incredible. They're just growing and growing and growing. And one thing that this podcast also showed me is how many different kinds of podcasts there can be. Like, there is no limit to what a podcast can be. There isn't just one sort of podcast. There's comedy, there's horror, there's business, motivation, like ours. And I mean, if there isn't a podcast that's about what you want to make, then make one.
There you go. So what are some of the challenges that people might that you might run into when trying to start a podcast?
The biggest thing that I've seen when looking at other people's podcasts and why they don't necessarily take off is well, first they get a content block. They say everything that they're wanting to say, and then they get stuck. So really, you should have the first 3 or 4 episodes already recorded before you even distribute anything. And then from there, you need to create a schedule for yourself and your promotional content to make sure that doesn't happen, to where you consistently are recording episodes before they come out, and you have a plan for yourself. But also, people just get guests. Yeah. If you can't find guests in time, but when they don't see the engagement that they're looking for right away, then they just get they doubt themselves.
Yes.
because podcasts really aren't something that you see a boost in engagement immediately.
Right.
It's one of those long-term things that it takes a long time to see a big change.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like if you released a song to radio and they only played it once or two or three times, then what? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's gone. They have to keep playing it over and over again. You have to just stay in front of people all the time. But I think that they solve a huge content problem in especially in the digital market, just because that was the hardest thing for a long time for me was wanting to win at digital marketing and social media and things like that. Was you have to have stuff to put in front of people to post, and creating that stuff is it's difficult. It's not easy if you don't know what you're doing and don't have a lot of the longer you do it, the easier it gets.
Absolutely.
You build catalog, you can use reruns. But with a podcast, man, it's like, we've been going for I don't know how long right now, but I mean, we could there's probably 8 to 10 marketing clips we can get out of this. What we've said so far already.
Yeah, I think the hardest part of anything is just starting, and you get better and better and better the more you go. There's always room for improvement.
Yep.
No one's perfect. No one starts something and it's perfect the first time. That's something I think people in general just, if you're not good at something the first time, then they're like, oh, well, that wasn't for me. Yeah. But, well, how do you know if you don't keep trying? How do you know that you're not going to get good at it? You don't have to be good the first time. You don't have to be as good as the other person was when they first started. You don't have to be as good as, anyone. It doesn't matter how good you are compared to anyone else. It matters how good you are compared to yourself and how you keep growing. Yeah,
it's very liberating. There's creative freedom here with the podcast because you're not dealing with a big network or anybody. The best ones have a topic, have a genre or a category, and they stay within it, which is which we're going to do. But there's so much space you can explore. Absolutely. Within each of those, right? And I personally prefer the guest ones. Yeah. Just because of the flavor that they bring to each and every episode. Every episode feels different. You know what I mean? So, all right. What are some of? Seriously, 10 episodes. I think it was like right at 15 hours worth of footage. Yeah. What were some of your favorite guest moments? Ooh. Putting her on the spot, folks. Yeah. Putting her on the spot.
Yeah. Ooh, I have to think for a minute because there's been so many. But even in every episode, it really is just about the life lessons inside them.
So I don't know. You could go through by guests and think about those. I know one of my favorite moments from like Chris Rimbolt did a great job of he had some really great messages direct to the audience where it was so cool where he actually like just looked straight at the camera and spoke directly to the people. That was really neat. Not many of the other guests have done that. That was kind of a unique element. Along with the fact I learned more about like tech and Tesla and gosh, we talked about everything from flat earthers to outer space, Mars, habitating. It was crazy. But that's how anytime him and I get together, that's where it goes. And it was so cool to have that mic'd up and saved and archived, right? So I don't know, what are some of the things that stand out to you that were fun? You could start with one of the things about your dad's episode.
Yeah. Well, in my dad's episode, that one was really, I feel like I was sort of part of that target audience for that one because I understood a lot of that tech stuff. It was a very techie episode, and it was really, really cool to hear when that stuff doesn't really get talked about as much, especially not on podcasts, because it's not something that most people would want to hear. It's not something most people would understand, but for those few people who do get it, it's like, oh my gosh, yes, I get it.
That's right. We did nerd out a little bit on some gear, didn't we?
Yeah, a little bit, and I loved it.
Well, let's see. So, my wife was the lone woman so far out of our 10 guests, which we've got some amazing women lined up for 2022.
Yes.
That's really good. And the I hate that she was the only one, but that wasn't on purpose. It's just the way people's schedules allowed with the holidays and all that. Because we basically shot all these October through early December.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was back to back to back. And but we do have a laundry list of folks that we're working to bring in. So what's something that from a woman's point of view, what was something that you got from her?
I think it was really nice to see another woman in this industry that's working just as hard as everyone else and is just as successful as everyone else. And just really being an example for me as what I want to be.
Just stay focused. Like, I don't need to be persuaded one way or the other. I have my own thoughts. Just let me stay focused.
Yeah.
And what I can do. And I mean, just how hard she works, how inspired she is all the time. It's just incredible. And she's got 2 full-time jobs pretty much. I mean, she's a mom on top of everything that she does, and she doesn't stop being a mom when she's at work.
She's raising a almost 9-month-old, a 12-year-old, and a 41-year-old. So, and you probably saw a lot of like seeing your dad in that element. Obviously, our families are close. You probably like could resonate a lot of what you heard through my wife with your own mom.
Yeah.
Because she's a worker. She's a beast in her own right.
Oh my gosh, yes. My mom is amazing. I will say. I mean, she's just go, 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 go. I mean, I say that, but really she is like she's had 2 foot surgeries now, and she still goes to the gym.
Yep.
And she still takes care of my younger siblings, and she's working now as a baby. They call it a baby catcher. She's at the hospital in the labor and delivery. I think her first day is the Monday she comes back from Minnesota. They're in Minnesota right now. And all of this she does, and she just doesn't stop. I mean, I'm surrounded by these women who are just completely inspirational, completely they're workaholics, but in the best way possible.
That's the catch. That is the catch. Is I was watching a video. I can't remember his name, but he's a billionaire, and I gave air quotes because I haven't seen his bank account. But but he said, "Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future." And I was like, "Dang, that's so good." You know what I mean? Like, you are who you hang around.
Absolutely.
You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that's another. So how do you improve your circle? Well, if you have a podcast and you can bring some great people in, at least for an hour or 2 at a time, you're hanging out with people that are awesome.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So we've got 15 hours of hanging with incredible folks. And so not only did they make for a great show, but they make us better at the same time, right? I cannot say how important it is to be around great people and how this is a great avenue to do that.
Well, because mindset matters. What you think about is what your life becomes. And how are you going to be thinking about where your life is going, where you want it to be, if you're constantly surrounded by people who are talking so negatively and bringing you down?
That's right. That's right. We were talking about some of the challenges in starting a podcast and why social media podcast promotion is so important to grow your business. It's not. So first of all, there's all these different platforms. Okay. And there are some great tools that you can use, which we won't mention those because there's tons of them and competitors and everything else. But there's some great tools that you can use to use those. But even then, like, you're always dealing with, I mean, gosh, Fiona, it's so important that when you post somebody that features a prominent guest, that their name is spelled right on all the platforms, that if they have certain hashtags or things that they want tagged or promoted. Like, there's just so much, the little things matter so much into the production of something like this. And every single platform is different. different sizes for content, different. There's there's stories on some, there's not on others. There's you can post links on some, you can't on others. Those platforms have their own issues and they go down, which causes issues for some of your stuff. I mean, it's a lot to keep up with.
It really is. I mean, if you think about it, most people have at least 5 or 6 platforms that they post on. Mm-hmm. And for us, we've been posting 4 times a day, 2 static images, 2 videos every single day. That's 6 platforms, 4 times a day.
Just on my stuff.
Just on yours.
And that's not counting web updates, website updates, any email stuff. It's not counting stories. Mm-hmm. It's not counting any stories or any of those things. That's just on my brand. Mm-hmm. Like, so that's every single day on holidays.
And that's what it takes.
That is what it takes. And I think that's what intimidates most folks. And that's the beautiful thing, is they don't have to worry about it anymore because we can do it.
Yes.
We can do it for those. So, any other highlights or favorite moments from our first 10 episodes of our first season?
Yeah. I mean, Ivan's was absolutely incredible. All of them were incredible, but Ivan's, I love how he is so positive. He is so positive, but he's able to go back and talk about the not so positive times in his life and use that to his advantage and really learn his lessons as far as I was here, now I'm here, and I'm going to remember those times that I had always, because I never want to go back there. And he uses the things that he's been through as motivation to keep going. And I think that's incredibly inspiring.
I was in a very dark spot where I just was kind of going through the motions, and there's a moment where you're entertaining. If the worst happens, you're okay with it. I just remember feeling at my absolute lowest, and he brought me in and brings out his business card, goes to fpl.com, pays the bill, and I say, I can't pay you back, man. I don't know how to pay you back, dude. He's like, I need you to be here.
When you think about it, if you think about all our guests, they all kind of had that same story, right? They all kind of had that same process from zero to hero to get to where they're at. And that's the thing that I think most people undervalue when they're trying to find themselves, make themselves get where they're going for their own destination of success, is that there isn't like a magical shortcut, or there's no magic pill. It is what it is. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be some grind in there and some things to overcome. Every one of them had that in common.
Yes. That's something I was talking about the other day with my friend is you cannot have good without bad. And in order to experience the highest highs, you have to experience the lowest lows.
Dang right. You can repeat that one. That was good. That was good. What's some of the feedback been from the folks that, and I have no idea what she was going to say right here. Right. So, and look, we've mentioned this before when it comes to marketing. If you're not getting some negative review, you're not hitting enough people. You're not putting yourself out there enough, right? So I think Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's the biggest star in Hollywood today. Mm-hmm. And he's got some haters, dude. There's some people that did not like his last movie, yet it's number one. It was number one, and it's still number one. There's people that don't like his energy drink. It's number one. There's people that don't like his rap song. It was number one. That's just kind of part of it, right? Mm-hmm. You're not for everybody. Everybody's got their own opinion. That's what makes it theirs. Mm-hmm. So what's some of the feedback that you got? Because obviously your friends probably didn't know you were going to be getting into this stuff until you were in it.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even know I was going to be getting into this stuff until I was in it. And it's just one of those things where it's like, you can't do what you do and do it because of other people. Mm-hmm. I mean, if it makes you happy, it's because you're doing it because it makes you happy, not because it makes other people happy. I mean, of course, that's just something that if it makes other people happy too, that's just a plus.
That's right.
But I don't do what I do because of other people, and you don't do what you do because of other people. I can say that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And if a hate comment stops you from posting, what about all the other people who benefited from what you posted?
That's exactly right, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Well, like that's most people when they say they don't see the value in it, that's why. And if they're honest with themselves, that's where they'll get to. That's the conclusion they'll come to, right? Especially when social media was new. As every time I make another lap around the sun, I become a little bit older, and there becomes somebody that's younger, that's a little bit older, that's where I was, and I promise myself all the time that I'll never be that way, where it's like, oh, that's, it's something new, I don't like it. A lot of people are that way when it comes to digital currency. Everybody's like that about music. And it's funny, what's new today, 10 years from now, and it's 10 years old, people will be like, man, that was real music and this new stuff sucks. There's always going to be people like that. And that's, before you just make a decision on something, whether that you don't like it, try it.
Absolutely. I mean, there's never a point where you cannot grow anymore. There's never a point where you can't learn something new. You're never too old to learn. You're never too young to learn. There's just, everything is always growing. Everything is just evolving. And there's so much beauty in that. And to say, oh no, I don't want to. I don't want to grow. I don't want to learn. And I'm good where I am. Really?
That's right.
Really? You don't want to learn anything else? What if it's amazing? What if it's the best thing you've ever learned? Or your new favorite thing,
Yes. There is we talk about this from time to time, reinventing yourself. And a buddy of mine, I talk a lot about reinventing myself. And Ryan Crossland, this one's for you, baby. If you're listening, he called me one day and told me how much he thought of the work, and I really appreciated that. And he said, but you said something the other day, Nick, that I think you were wrong at. And I was like, what was that? And he was like, you said you reinvented yourself. I was like, yeah. He said, you didn't reinvent yourself. You finally became the person that we all knew you would become. And I was like, dang, first of all, that's awesome. Thank you. But that's true. However, for me, I had to, in my own mind, I had to reinvent myself from an athlete to whatever came next. And here's what I mean by that. So my daughter's doing it right now. Almost every single day, she reinvents herself as almost a new human because she learns a new trait, right? A new, how to do something new. So, but think about it. Your first year in school is kindergarten for most, and then you graduate, and they make this big deal about it. Now you're a first grader. So you just literally were told you reinvented yourself as a first grader. Second grade, third grade, fourth grade, all the way through high school, maybe college. You get a couple jobs, and eventually you're going to find that most people land a job that they keep for a while, and they stop. They stop reinventing themselves at that moment. They stop evolving at that moment. They get content. And then 10 years later, they look up and they're like, they're not happy, and they don't know why. Right? So you spent your first 20 to 30 years reinventing yourself into something new and better over and over and over again, and then all of a sudden you just stop. Right? So that's the death of most artists.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They stop reinventing themselves. And it's hard to do. It's hard for an artist to stay relevant for decades. But that it happens a lot. And that's kind of how we're leading into what we're getting into with this show in 2022, because we had a great meeting yesterday.
Yes.
We had a great meeting yesterday about some of the stuff that we're going to be doing, how to play off holidays and all kinds of stuff, and what we're doing with this show, how it's an inside look. I mean, I've never even heard of a podcast doing that before. Have you?
No.
If you find one, let us know. We'd love to check it out. But I've heard of TV shows doing it.
Yeah.
But never a podcast at an inside look at like the behind the scenes or what goes on and stuff like that. I will say that what people see on camera is the majority of the studio. There's some stuff that's off-site, but it's clean in here. It's clean. It's professional, and we're going to be changing sets, giving different looks, different angles. all kinds of stuff. So, what are some things that you're excited about for 2022?
Ooh, I mean, there's so many guests I'm excited for. I mean, our production value is as good as it is now. It's only going up. I'm so excited. I mean, for the crew podcast, I don't know what we're calling that, whatever that ends up being. I'm so excited. I mean, I've grown so much as a person since starting working here, and I'm excited to see how much more I'm going to change too. It's just, this opportunity is incredible, and I'm so grateful for it, and I'm so glad to be here.
Well, the guests are going to be great.
Yes.
The guests are going to be great. There is, anytime you're dealing in big production like this, we've been very fortunate and had very few mishaps along the way. So I'm sure there's going to be some good ones, and because we shoot it all raw and unedited, everybody will experience those with us, and we'll all laugh together. But as long as it doesn't downplay the quality of the guest that's sitting in the chair, right?
Yes.
But we are going to be changing the scenes up a little bit, changing some sets, having a little bit of fun. We're expanding on studios. We actually have we call this is the Hit Lab, right? And
Yes.
in the room next door, I call that Studio 15. Nobody's really even seen that one yet, and we shot some stuff in there today.
Yeah.
But there's more stuff there, and we're going to be expanding upon that as well. And then I think the thing I'm most excited about is all of the show concepts that we're going to be launching from all of our new clients.
Yes. I am so excited to see, I mean, how much growth we can get out of this, and how much we can expand even on podcasting, on social media, everything. It's just, we can do it all.
We can do it all, can't we? So, Fiona, what else do we need to let the folks know about, if anything, where this show, the Hitstreak, is going in 2022? We touched on everything: the Hit Lab, social media, some of the services that we can provide for folks, whether it be web development, logo creation, podcast concept, anything that you need digitally to market and promote your business or launch your brand, including a podcast.
Yes.
We can do it, and we can distribute it, which honestly that's the most difficult and hardest part.
Yes.
Because we were talking about a colleague who creates amazing quality content, but the distribution is lacking.
Yes.
Right, which means nobody sees it. And if nobody sees it, that stinks.
That is one thing we talk about a lot, is anyone can make content. It's what you do with it that makes the difference.
That's right. Imagine, I don't know, a classic TV show like Seinfeld, as great as it was, if nobody ever saw it. You know, it existed, but nobody saw it. Then the world would be a totally different place. So, wherever folks go to get entertainment or lessons, or wherever they go to listen, ask yourself, is your content there? Is your show there? Will they find you there? When they go looking for what you do, will they find you there? You know what I mean? And if the answer is yes, everybody wins.
Absolutely.
So, first of all, they need to keep up with you, because you do have some amazing music stuff happening on your TikTok and IG, your Instagram, Fiona.Wascom.
Yep.
Right. And then obviously, the hitlabstudio.com, which is that's one of those websites you need to check in often, because it's always changing. There's always things growing and being added on there, as well as you can be checking out the HitLab social media, which we're launching here very shortly. We're putting together some really special stuff for that, so it's going to be a good time. But man, I can't tell you, Fiona, how grateful I am to have you and Connor and Joshua and everybody else on the team, on the HitLab creative team here, because I'm just so proud of what we've put out so far. The feedback has been absolutely amazing. My own son, who's an artist in his own right, has how many 12-year-olds listen to a business podcast?
I mean, I couldn't name another one besides him.
Well, he's listened to every single one of them, and I didn't even have to make him. You know what I mean? So, and it's been great because, just the people that I would go listen to on my own, the stories are the stories that we're telling here. And that's why I enjoy listening to my own or watching my own, not because I'm on it. It's because nobody likes to hear themselves talk, right? So, but it's because of the people that are hanging out with and that I'm getting to hang out with and talk to and the stories they're telling. And it's just great being able to interview amazing people.
Yeah. I mean, this podcast isn't necessarily for my demographic. I mean, I'm 20 years old, and most people that are on this show or listen to the show are not my demographic, but I love it. I love to listen to it. So it really is for everybody.
It's awesome. That's awesome. And we're only going to get better, baby. We're only going to get better. Well, Fiona, is there anything else that we're forgetting that we need to let the folks know? Because look, man, I'm a big person on goals, right? And for me, everybody, New Year's is a big New Year's resolutions and all that kind of stuff. Here's what New Year's means to me. Okay. To me, New Year's is just simply the end of one set of goals and the beginning of another.
Yes.
Right. So, obviously I have goals every day, every hour, and every week, every month, every quarter, every 6 months and every year, but they all the little ones add up to the annual one. And, so we just finished up, 2021. It was our, in business, it was our biggest and best year we've ever had. And we had an amazing experience in launching the studio, launching the Hit Lab and this podcast, the Hitstreak. So I can't tell you how excited I am for 2022, but what I can tell them is they ain't seen anything yet. They ain't seen nothing yet. So, folks, check us out, hitlabstudio.com, TikTok and Instagram, fiona.wascom. And how do they contact you, Fiona? What's your email address?
My personal email is fionawascom@gmail.com.
There you go. She's giving out the personal email, folks. That's how amazing she is, right? So hit her up, ask all the questions you got. This wraps up another episode of the Hit Streak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder, folks. I hope you had an amazing 2021. Cheers to an even more amazing 2022. Happy New Year, folks. We'll see you soon.